What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner, on how you can better grow your restoration business by getting your internet marketing right. My name is Ben. I'm your host of the Restoration Rundown. I'm also the CEO of Ironclad Restoration Marketing, where we help restoration business owners get more leads and sales via digital marketing means. And today I wanted to jump on and record this episode because I feel like it's super important. It's just something that comes up quite a bit. It's specifically about SEO, and to try to change the narrative on it a little bit. A lot of people run the other way when they hear that. They hear agencies talking about SEO, and they've just been burned so many times that it's a nasty 3-letter word. Nobody wants to hear it anymore. They don't care. They've got people referring them work. They're using 33 Mile or Inquiry. They're getting all kinds of leads. They're fine. But today I want to talk about why you have to stop looking at SEO. Now, that is very valid points. It's terrible when people get burned and smoked, but hopefully with this podcast and all the education that we do, my book, we're going to teach you what really to look for in an agency and maybe why your SEO wasn't working in the past, because I'm here to tell you that it is one of the most important things you can do for your business. In the restoration industry, people have an immediate need. 90-something% of people get onto a search engine when they're looking for a product or service, especially emergency type home services like the restoration industry. So it goes without saying, having those first page rankings across the board, being omnipresent digitally is very important for your business. You just can't argue that. The numbers are there. But today I want to talk more so not about why you have to have SEO and all that, which you do. We're not pom-pomming for SEO, but really today I want to talk more about not treating SEO as a cost. And what I mean by that is just something that I got to pay, right? You got to look at SEO like an investment into your business. So today we're going to talk about why you need to be treating SEO, and your mentality needs to be geared more towards treating SEO like an investment, not just a cost. All right. Put together this little slideshow. So if you're listening in on one of the streaming services, thank you, first of all. But if you do want to take a look at these slides, they're going to be on YouTube, our Restoration Rundown YouTube. And I think we're going to broadcast live on LinkedIn too. So you can always go back and watch this. Hopefully there's some value here that you can take away from it. You might want to go check out again. So if you don't know what SEO and getting organic traffic and all that. So SEO really is the process and the practice of getting your website ranked on page 1 of search engines. We primarily focus on Google. They have the lion's share of search. I think it's over 90-something% of people use that versus the other search engines that exist. But typically, if you are following Google's best practices with your SEO work, their guidelines are so strict that you're going to rank on these other search engines as well. And so you SEO, the whole point is to get you listed in the organic section, which is the section right below the maps, below the ads and below the maps. And it is, you have to kind of look at SEO like a garden, I guess would be the same thing. A garden is going to bear you an abundance of fruit and vegetables year over year, but it has to be properly cared for every season. You can't just throw a bunch of tomato seeds on the ground and leave, not water it. The weather's been crappy, come back and hope to have a bunch of tomatoes. You do have to tend that garden a little bit. And that's why we look at SEO like an investment. If you have any experience with it in the past, you may have gotten the excuses, we need more time. It hasn't been long enough from your agencies or even your in-house teams. And that's why they're usually right. It does take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to sometimes years for certain pages and keywords to climb up to page 1 of Google. And you also, being in the restoration industry, you know how competitive it is. So you're not the only guy talking to agencies and hiring SEO firms and running Google ads, and you're not the only guy doing all that stuff. So you have a very high level of competition, and it's usually very condensed in your cities, especially if you're in the bigger cities like Miami or Dallas, that, there's 5,000 restoration contractors in that little, I guess we don't want to say small area, but it becomes smaller the more companies that exist, between the big franchises to the guys that are just, one-man show. There's a lot of people doing what you do. So organic traffic is a very, very valuable place and thing that you need for your business. And you got to remember, a lot of people, sometimes we hear marketers and, guys will say, well, we can do SEO for 6 months. And once we're on the first page, we'll shut it down. And not only, you can't, if you look at it like a garden, you can't do that, but they kind of look at it like it's free traffic, right? And it's not free. It costs a lot of money, whether you're in-house or you are outsourcing this, to get that consistent quality web traffic to your site, get those first page rankings. But at the end of the day, it really more matters to have a better ROI, right? So stop thinking about the words free and looking at it like a cost, and you're thinking about it all wrong. Again, you have to think of it like an investment, like a garden, right? And at the end of the day, we want the phone ringing. We want to do whatever we got to do to get the best possible ROI. And that's going to take an investment in the components that contribute to your web traffic growth, right? Which is basically a combination of people, content, because if you know anything about SEO or dealt with it, you need to add content to your site to get Google to index you, and tools. All right. So no matter which way you're going to go with it, in-house or outsource, it is an investment in people, in content, and the tools for your business. Now, those are great investments. You don't put money in a 401k and watch it every second and pull it out if it's not growing fast enough. No, you put money in a 401k that 30 years down the road, that money's appreciated. It's worth a lot more money when you need it, right? So SEO, I can't say it anymore. I mean, SEO is almost exactly like a 401k for your business. But once you start ranking, those leads are coming in and the cost per acquisition goes down. All of the money you're spending on this content and the people and the tools is appreciating in value. So that's where, it's not free, but at some point, the investment you're making in SEO is going to pay off big time. All right. And the two biggest web traffic and I guess, lead generation sources online right now is SEO and paid search, right? Pay-per-click, Google ads. I'm sure you've tried both. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you've had an issue, but they both require people, content, and tools, right? So if you're spending a bunch of money on a paid search campaign, I mean, it's going to generate immediate results, right? Because those campaigns, if they're done right, like what we do for our clients, they're managed daily, weekly, hourly, sometimes when they're just starting up. And that's why a lot of companies will dedicate more money to pay-per-click. They'll neglect SEO. They'll neglect Google Business Profile because they're paying money and they're getting a somewhat direct response type of marketing. But the ROI for SEO, it's only realized after a long time, right? Once you get those first page rankings and your organic traffic starts to grow, it can be months or years, like I said before. Before Google even ranks those things organically, right? So, but once you do, you're going to start being able to measure your visitors a little bit better. And you're going to start seeing that, although you're getting immediate results with pay-per-click, the SEO is going to give you an abundance. You're going to get way more appreciating assets, with the content you're putting on your site, and all the different investments that you're making. You got to look at it again. We'll go back to the garden. SEO is like a garden that you plant. Someday if you take care of it, you properly optimize the garden with the right amount of water, fertilizer, tending, pulling weeds, getting rid of pests, you're going to be able to grow food, fruit, vegetables, whatever the case may be, year over year. And at some point, the investment that you've made in the time to till the garden, to put the seeds in, that's all time and money. So people, the content, which is going to be the tools, and the other investments that you make for it, the tools being, pulling weeds, using a hoe, watering it every day. Those are all investments in time and money. It's just like SEO, right? But if you needed to, and that's going to be like, all right, we're getting vegetables down the road. But pay-per-click is like, well, I need tomatoes right now. I need eggplants right now. You're going to have to go to the store and get an eggplant that's already done, right? And usually people do that like, well, damn, I'm just going to go to the store. I don't have to worry about spending all this time and money on agencies to do this work. I don't have to go till the garden and sweat and get bit by spiders and get dirty and deal with this thing. And that maybe is going to bear fruit down the road. No, you just go to the grocery store. And what happens is you start neglecting that garden, and that garden's never going to give you anything. And a lot of the same stuff happens with SEO, right? Look, I get it. Restoration contract, you're like, this is very competitive. You need to get those results right away. You got to start making that money. You need to get those water jobs in. You got to get those mold jobs in. And all you've got to do, we're using a lead generation service or pay-per-click and spend a bunch of money, and you get these jobs in right away. But what ends up happening over time, and why SEO is more of a sustainable approach, is not only does pay-per-click require constant investment, maintenance, manipulation, you're going to get really quick results, but they are short-lived, right? So if you, let's say your budget is not the same in March as it was in April, and you can't afford to buy leads from 33 Mile, you can't afford to spend as much money on Google Ads. Well, all that momentum you've built and all that investment that you've made is out the window. Whereas organic traffic, the investment in the people, the content, and the tools that you've put in, these appreciating assets on your website, they're evergreen, right? You got to remember too, SEO is not a set it and forget it kind of thing. I think there was 2,100 changes to Google search in 2021 or something like that, or maybe I'm mixing up the numbers. I have it here in another slide. The other thing about pay-per-click is going to become less and less sustainable, like I said before, because your budget is going to eventually run out. And if it's a super competitive time of the year, like we're in Florida and it's storm damage season, you might get priced right out of your marketing of your budget for pay-per-click in a bidding war. So you've got the big boys coming in with endless budgets that want to get in your area. They want to get in your territory because a storm hit. They're going to price you right out, where your cost per click for water damage was $80 a click. It goes up to $300 a click. So whereas you were able to get 4, calls, qualified clicks for $320, now it's 1. And at some point that is not sustainable. So again, investing in organic traffic, it's like planting a garden to get your fruit and vegetables and feed yourself. Pay-per-click is like going to the grocery store to get the fruit and vegetables while you wait for your garden to grow, but you need to make sure that you're still tending that garden if you want that stuff to grow. All right. Organic search, like we mentioned before, is a little bit and a lot more cost effective in the long run. It's just cheaper than pay-per-click when you look at a longer timeline. You never look at your business. You should be looking at your business daily, weekly, and looking at your KPIs. But if you look at a timeline of your business or anything that you're doing, an investment that you're making, you want to see incremental growth, right? We mentioned the 401k. You're putting money in it now. You're not going to be checking it every single day. If you are, that's great. I do sometimes with some of my investments. I'm checking it every day. Even though I know it's nothing I can touch for 30 years, it's still fun to do. But your assets need to appreciate over time. All right. And so you need to look at it at a longer timeline, especially with organic search. And you have to remember that all the assets that you're creating, either your in-house team or your agency, so they should be putting blogs on your site, monthly blogging, just adding content to your site that's relevant and relative to the keywords you want to rank for, city landing pages, all that content appreciates over time when it's tended to correctly. All right. These things, even if you stopped investing in organic search for a little while, those things are still going to grow. At some point it's going to die, and it's just like a garden, just like planting something. I can't say it anymore. Your garden may grow. You might get a couple crops of tomatoes without going out there and doing a whole lot once it's established, but at some point it's not sustainable. Now, when you got to think about organic traffic, just think about like at some point when you're investing in SEO, you're going to be generating a ton of traffic to your website, and you're going to be paying like next to nothing for it, right? The more jobs you get, you could take you a year, right? You're investing $2,000 a month in SEO and Google Business Profile Management, and you're getting these keywords growing, and there's the phone's ringing a little bit, but it's not, the investment's not really lining up. It's not adding up. And then all of a sudden, after 5 or 6 months, you get a call, you got a $250,000 fire job from that. Well, I would say that's well worth it, right? You're investing $24,000 in a year, and you've gotten one $250,000 job on it. And it's a pretty decent return on your investment, wouldn't you say? And now, if you do things correctly, you've got this job, you've got a case study, you've got photos that you're putting on your Google business to grow in those keywords for fire damage restoration. And now those jobs start rolling in a little bit more frequently. Whether, and it's applicable to any service that you provide. I don't care if you're a plumber, electrician, roofer, or a restoration contractor. That's the model that you need to be using for especially for home service based businesses. That's your billboard, first page of Google. So investing in organic search, investing in pay-per-click is very important too. But you have to make sure that you're investing in organic search for your business. Now, a couple things. So some guys want to do this stuff themselves. I wrote a book about digital marketing for restoration contractors. It's called the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors, because I'm all about people doing things themselves. I'm a DIY guy. The first thing I'm going to do when I have an issue is I'm going to go on YouTube or Google and try to figure out a way that I can figure it out on my own. So I'm all for getting an in-house team. It's great. There's a lot of benefits to having an in-house team. But as you'll see, I like to look at the numbers, the money. You need to have people that are professional. In-house team, they need to be qualified. They need to understand what's going on. And I mentioned before, Google made 5,000 changes to search in 2021. That's algorithm updates. So I know that's another excuse. I hate to say excuse, but that's another thing that when we talk to contractors, like, yeah, I know our other SEO firm, when we weren't getting the results after 2 months, they would just tell me that there was a bunch of algorithm updates, and they're right. There is all the time. And there's nothing you can do about it except for follow the guidelines and research the changes and stay on top of things to make sure that the content you're providing and the technical SEO that you're providing are matching what Google wants you to do to deliver their user base the most relevant content applicable for every search. All right, so let's look at an in-house team. So an experienced in-house team for like a medium-sized company, greater than $750,000 a year. You get 2 employees. You get by with one. Absolutely. You're going to be paying for them because you have to remember you got people, somebody with experience, content. That's the stuff you're going to be putting on your site, and then the tools to do so. So it's not free. Somebody's not just clacking away on a keyboard, making things magically appear on your site. There are tools and softwares that you have to invest in to really, make sure that you're healthy and making sure that your website's fast. You have to have a website, obviously. So you're looking at over $175,000 a year. Now, whether you want to chalk that up to 2 separate employees, well, I'm going to put it this way. You have to be putting a certain amount of content. So that takes a content. It's a specialist. Everything with SEO is somebody that is a specialist, just like what you do. There's guys that are techs that can deal with mold. They're certified for that. And there's guys that deal with water. There's guys that do both. There's unicorns that do kind of everything, but you already know as a business owner that those are very few and far between. So at a minimum, you have to have one person that's in charge, that runs the show. They ideally would understand web development to be able to make the changes on the website that you need to make. They would understand content writing, so they can either write the content themselves or, hire somebody to write articles and write the content, write the city pages. Then they'd have to know how to put that stuff onto the website. Then they would have to know from a technical SEO standpoint how to properly set everything up from a metadata perspective, all the technical stuff that goes on the website. And then they would need to know how to read Google Analytics. I mean, there's just so many different specialized jobs within SEO that you want to call it. It does cost money. So you're going to be spending over $175,000 a year to get somebody really good. Now you get lucky, you can find those unicorns and you got one employee there that runs everything, but I can see how somebody can get really burned out. And, that's just kind of what it is. And so for that same size company, outsourcing to an agency, you should be spending at least $1,000 a month, would be probably like the bare bones minimum. And you'd have to make sure that you're really getting everything you need. Really at it's infallible. You need to have, somebody doing SEO, all that content generation, all the technical stuff, which agencies usually have a whole team. And you have to be managing a Google business profile, which is a totally separate thing now. And that is based solely off this new algorithm update back in last November. They are weighing really heavily on Google business profile. So you need somebody that kind of knows that, and you got to make sure the agency's running that. And so you're going to be spending anywhere from, I'd say conservatively, $18,000 to $30,000 a year. I know I wrote 24,000 here if you're looking at the slides, but sometimes you can get by for under $1,800, $1,500 a month should cover SEO and Google business profile. That doesn't cover your ad spend. You should be running pay-per-click as well. So hopefully that company can run your pay-per-click ads. By the way, forgot to even add the pay-per-click management in your in-house team. So your in-house team would either have to know pay-per-click along with SEO and along with all this other stuff, or you'd be outsourcing that and they would just be managing it. There's a lot of different ways to skin a cat, right? And if you're a larger size company, you're doing better than $3 million a year, you're spending over $300,000 all day long. Typically you're multi-location. You've got multiple crews out on the road, and you can only have them in the yard washing cars so many times. You got to have that phone ringing. So you need a very aggressive team. It's more than $300,000 a year. But if you did outsource that to an agency, you're only spending 48 to 60. So you're in a sense, hiring an agency is usually the most cost effective. I can see, I'm a control freak. I get it. You want to have people there, but that's not the way it works, right? Especially when you're talking about an investment. It's almost like hiring somebody, especially if you're going to hire somebody that's just going to manage your SEO, and you're going to hire somebody for pay-per-click, and they've got some writers, and this person can do website work. So they're adding the content to your site. It's almost like hiring somebody to just watch your seeds grow in your garden. Why do that? You can just stick a scarecrow in the ground and eventually you come back, make sure it's taken care of. It's going to be done right, versus having outsourcing it. Whereas you don't have to be there monitoring them because you're going to probably be over their shoulder looking. And when you need to take a look at the timeline of how long it takes to get those results, you're probably not going to be very happy with them. So it's usually cost effective, but at the end of the day, no matter what, for SEO to work, it does require an investment, and it's a very collaborative effort. And here's some key stats of why, if you still think that you shouldn't be using SEO. So 93% of the time, an online session begins by searching a keyword in a search engine. 53% of all web traffic were clicked on organic results. So more than everything else. And Google alone processes more than 40,000 keyword searches every single second. That's like 3.5 billion searches in a single day and over 1 trillion in a year. And it's over this 20% of keywords searched on Google in any given day have never been searched before. So if that doesn't lend, outside of the investment and the payoff from investing in organic search, if that doesn't help move the needle a little bit, if you're still salty about getting burned on SEO, it's just something, honestly, you need to just educate yourself, learn, understand more so what it takes, what success looks like when it comes to SEO. What is a KPI? What are you looking to get? Are you looking to have keywords climb? That should happen. Your organic traffic should grow over time. That should happen when it's done correctly. And if those two things aren't happening, then you got problems. If you're only doing SEO and you're not running pay-per-click, your phone, it's going to take a while for you to get those first page rankings, and your phone's not going to ring right away. So if that's the only thing you're looking at, you're not going to be happy. But you have to look at it like an investment. Money spent now and put in now, and you're putting it in a bank account, and it's appreciating over time. It's going to pay off if you do it correctly. Keywords and organic rankings and your organic traffic are just really good performance indicators to know that you're on the right track. All right. So a lot of times understanding what it takes is going to, cull a lot of that saltiness and make you make you feel a little bit better, and maybe start to trust a little bit more, maybe hire somebody in-house to take care of stuff for you. But if you do need help, that's what we do. I'd go get the book right now. It's on Amazon. The Kindle version is super cheap. I got a cool paperback version. If you want one, holler at me. Shoot me a DM. I'll send you one in the mail for free just for listening to this podcast and listening to me ramble on about SEO for 20-something minutes. We also have a restoration internet marketing checklist for restoration business owners. So if anything, use it as a piece of a guideline for information, and go through the checklist and make sure if you're missing any one of those things and you're paying somebody to do those things, well, now you have some accountability you can hold them to. But that checklist is free. You can get it on our website at ironcladrestorationmarketing.com. There's a checklist. There's all kinds of videos that I make every single day on social media. Check out the podcast. But the biggest thing about this stuff is you need to educate yourself on what success looks like and what the work is that happens in between, and what it really looks like to be successful. But that's it. That's why you should always treat SEO as an investment, not a cost. Just like growing a garden, it doesn't happen right away. If you need it right away, go to the grocery store. If you need leads right away, use pay-per-click while your SEO is bearing fruit. Once it bears fruit, it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than going to the grocery store to buy your fruit and vegetables any day. And that's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Restoration Rundown. We will see you soon. We've got some really cool episodes coming up, some special guests. So make sure you like, subscribe, share our channel, and just make sure that you've got your internet marketing right. Get the book. Give us a shout if you need anything at all, and leave us a review if there's anything you're struggling with. Drop it in the comments below wherever you might be watching this, and we will address it on a podcast episode. Until the next time.